Now, let's talk about the real estate industry, which has recently been on the radar of the federal government with the introduction of stamp duties on house rent and certificates of occupancy. This is apart from other issues such as the vacancy rate in highbrow areas and the concerns around building permits and building collapse. Well, joining us now to unpack these conversations is the Chief Executive Officer of Beaston Group, Mrs. Becky Olubukola-Oke, who joins us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, Mrs. Olubukola-Oke. Thanks for joining us on the program. Tell us, what's your reaction to the reenactment of the stamp duty laws on rents and certificates of occupancy as it relates to the real estate market of today?
Thank you very much for having me. There's a need for reevaluation of a lot of things considering the pandemic, because none of us were prepared for the pandemic. There's a need for reevaluation. There's a need to look at a lot of things. Part of what is going on is the real estate market. There's been meltdown in the business, as we all know. Of course, a lot of other sectors are affected. Coming to talk about the stamp duty, the government have looked at the fact that everybody needs to be part of the building of the nation. The nation building requires every part of everyone, every businesses. And if there's a need for us to start paying stamp duty for the rent, then so be it. After all, people pay agency fee, people pay legal fee and all those other fees before you get an apartment. Beyond that, tenement rate is another issue that most tenants don't want to even hear about. They believe that is an issue for the landlord or the property owners to handle. All of these things are what we call everyone being able to play their roles in Nigeria as it is today. Everybody needs to be part of the nation building. Every individual needs to be able to put their best to it. Real estate business is the surest stimulant for economic growth as it is. Most of the parastatals or most of the other sectors are going through issues. Yeah, we can say that the pandemic affected real estate business, but it's picking up as it is today. It's picking up, and a lot of people are beginning to understand that the best investment they can do is actually to invest in real estate. Especially for us as an organization in Beaston Group, we've been able to create different value chain projects where people can actually see opportunities in investing in properties, investing in real estate, and investing in Beaston Group as a whole. Because our project cuts across the low-cost housing, having to see that people are able to buy, because there's no point building a property that people cannot afford. Okay. So affordability for us is key. And of course, being able to spread the payment, being able to give people 5 years, 7 years payment structure, and ensuring that everybody is able to acquire the property as they can or go through the mortgage processes that we have come up with. Because during the COVID-19, one of the major things that taught us as a business owner is corporate governance and being able to restructure and adjust your value chain, adjust your project, adjust what can work, and come up with strategies that can make people, buy into what is this. So if the government came up with the stamp duty idea, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's the right way to go. And of course, the CFO issue, we need to start issuing CFO to everyone. I've always been an advocate for review and reevaluate the Land Use Act. The Land Use Act needs to be reevaluated. And if this is the way to go, we need to look at it. The Ninth Assembly needs to see how they can finish up the Land Use Act, reevaluate it, readjust it, so that every Nigerian is able to have a CFO on your property. Because an investor will not invest without being sure that the title documents to that property or to that investment is right, and which is the certificate of occupancy, which is what most property owners don't have. So if we're looking at new stamp duty charges, we should look at ensuring that if we are paying stamp duty charges, CFO is being issued at the right time. And they should make it a seamless transaction, not necessarily putting for it and you are waiting for, months or years to get, your CFO, okay? Because that is what an investor will look at when he's trying to invest into your business.
All right, and Mrs. Olubukola-Oke, I was going to, Mrs. Olubukola-Oke. Yes, sorry. You say that yes. you agree with the government's drive reenacting the stamp duty laws, but many others will also argue that this is not really the best time, looking at the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy. What would you say about that?
To be honest with you, yes, I agree completely that this is not the right time, because The government needs to be sensitive to the needs of the people. There's so much stress in the nation right now. The people are losing their job. Businesses are being crumbled. So there's a lot of problem going on in the system. Government shouldn't have introduced this at this time. Okay? When you're looking at being sensitive, they shouldn't have introduced this at this time. Maybe they could have waited a little bit more to introduce this. Okay? But like I said earlier, the right thing needs to be done. If you look at other nations, if you look at other European countries, most of these duties that they are introducing to us right now in Nigeria are things that they're already paying across other nations. So they don't even have issue with it because I believe that the infrastructure is put in place. I believe that palliative measures are put in place to ensure that it cushions the effects of the COVID-19 in the life of the citizen. Our nation here in Nigeria, there's a need for our leaders to be a bit more sensitive to the people. Our people knows the right things to do, but I think that we need to introduce the right thing at the right time. We don't just sit, come up with laws or come up with idea and just throw it to the public. When the public are still, people are suffering. There's poverty. COVID-19 has brought more poverty to the nation. There are more poor people in the nation as we speak today. Industries are shutting off. Businesses are collapsing. People are losing their job. What I think that our nation should be doing right now is to look at areas where they can cushion these problems, areas where they can try to bring up palliative measures, bring more businesses. As fund is coming into the nation, we should not be hearing people fainting, people sharing money and here and there. We should be hearing how the nation are putting this money back into industries, building companies, building businesses that can, bring about livelihood, that can promote the other people that are losing their businesses, other people that are in the level where they cannot feed. Okay, so that's why I think that it was not so sensitive of them to bring this issue up. But it is not a bad idea for stamp duty to be charged. It's not a bad idea at all from the angle of our business in real estate. People pay other bills. So I don't think it's really a big deal.
Rate versus the occupancy rate.
A good time. The timing is a bit wrong.
All right, so let's talk about the vacancy rate versus the occupancy rate across the residential, offices and retail segments, mainly in Abuja, where you are, and in Lagos. Does it bother investors like you?
Well, the vacancy rate or the property rate is very high, highly exorbitant, okay, very exorbitant. That's where I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, that the industry needs to be regulated. The real estate industry is a large industry, and the real estate industry, if it's well regulated, can promote the GDP of this nation to 25% to 30%. It's a strong stimulant in nation building. If the housing development can be regulated and ensure that proper rates should be put in different locations. Your neighbor should not be renting a property for 4 million naira, another person is renting for 10 million naira, another person is renting for probably 2 million naira. There should be regulations in this industry. We have a body called the RIDAN. The RIDAN is doing so much to see how, regulations can be put in place. RIDAN is doing so much to see how everybody can be regulated, properties can be regulated, prices can be regulated. But then, the government have a job to do. The legislatures have a job to do to see that most of these things are regulated. There are several empty houses in Abuja that are built and nobody's living there.
And why is that? Why do we have so many houses like that?
150 million.
What's responsible for those vacancies?
So there's a need to have a rate and regulate it. What we need is regulation. When there's a proper regulation is put in place, people will fall in line with it. But when there are no laws, when there are no regulations, everybody just behave and do whatever they want to do. Everybody just fix a price that is not realistic. That is the problem we're facing.
Now, lately, we've seen the securitization of the real estate investments with instruments such as the real estate investment trust schemes. How has such security helped in hedging for investors?
Well, it's done a massive job. It's been very fantastic, okay? But then I think that it needs to be more promoted. I think more people need to be aware of that. More real estate companies, and the opportunity to be given to companies that are doing well. Companies that are doing so much, companies who are doing several projects, like us in Bistan Group, we have projects across all the states in Nigeria, both in Lagos, in Abuja, and across all the Southwest. We have several projects there. And I think that most of these companies who are doing so much like us should be given opportunities in accessing most of this fund, security fund, accessing developmental fund, so that we are able to do much more. We are a private sector. If the government sector can promote the private sector, partner with the private sector, it makes it easy for investors, either local investors or foreign investors, to partner and to do much more. But when the partnership angle is not there, then you see a private sector or a developer struggling so much to put infrastructure in place, to put proper to build. When you are building, you're also thinking of infrastructure. You're also thinking of securities for the occupants of the estate. There's so much that you are trying to put in place. Sometimes we have to go as far as providing mortgages for these people just to see that we're able to balance the equations for them. But you see, the PPP scheme needs to be promoted across the real estate markets. That's the private, the PPP scheme. If the PPP scheme is promoted and the government is partnering so much with a real estate organization or a real estate firm that are already in the market, then you will see that it will be easier for businesses to be done. Some of us who have been in the business, for us in Bista, we've been in the business for over a decade now. It's our 13th year in the industry.
All right.
There's a need for us to be pushed out there, and we've sought the partnership from government, from private sector, state government and federal government to see how much more we can build. The state government needs to do the job of providing housing to their citizens. It is the job of a governor, local government, or whoever that is there to provide housing. When housing problem is solved, I tell you, security issues will be solved. It will solve a lot of security issue. It will solve health issue. Because look at it, COVID-19 is out there. How many people have a good house to stay, a home to stay? You say people should stay at home during the lockdown. Most people could not even stay at home because they don't have a good apartment to stay. There are social houses in other nations. Do we have social houses? We don't. Do we have IDP homes? We don't have IDP homes. And they need to provide IDP homes, not just camp. If you go to places where IDP are living, you will be shocked. They are living under the canopies, suffering. We need to have an IDP home. We need to have a social home. We need to have old people's home. All these homes need to be put in place. And most of the time, government does not need to finance most of this. You can get the private sector to do it. You can get some of these companies to do it as their CSR. And they will provide 1,000 units, 100 units, 200 units across every state. Each state governor needs to look at this and see how you can put this in place, because when people have a home, their life will be secured. 50% of people's life, 50% of their problem will be solved when they have a good accommodation.
All right, Chief Executive Officer of Bistan Group, Mrs. Becky Olubukola. Okay, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Our attention would shift to the birth year laws amendment when we return in just a moment. Please stay with us.